What's up, everybody? Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Happy Monday. Today, I wanted to talk to you about something that's been top of mind for me personally, but also something I've been talking to a lot of clients about, which is stress. And I think that first, to start this topic, it's important to differentiate between acute stress and chronic stress and how the body interprets stress. So, when we talk about stress, it's not actually inherently a bad thing. Acute stress is needed. This is actually exactly what we want to do with our training is cause acute stress that signals the body to adapt. Where it becomes a problem is when it's chronic stress. This is stress that just is ongoing forever and there's not really an end to it. We are not made to live in a state of chronic stress, but we are made to adapt from acute stress. And this is where it can get a little bit confusing as you jump back and forth. But it's important to understand that the body doesn't interpret stress differently from different sources. Meaning emotional stress, work stress, training stress, like relationship stress, all of those things are interpreted by the body in the same way. So what's the only thing that's the big difference is whether it's acute, meaning short term with a resolution, or chronic, meaning ongoing indefinitely sometimes. So when talking about stress, more often than not, you'll hear the word cortisol. Cortisol is the hormone that is most often related to stress or associated with stress. But what cortisol really does is it just mobilizes energy in the body. So if we think about cortisol's natural function is it helps us wake up, right? So in the morning, we will get a spike of cortisol. The hormone will spike up. That's what actually wakes us up and gives us energy in the morning. And then as the day continues, it will drop down until bedtime where it's going to be at part of its lowest point and you go to sleep. And that's the natural flow of cortisol. Now, along that line, based on different stressors, which can be training, an argument, work, whatever it may be, we will see spikes, right? So it should start high in the morning, kind of come down throughout the day. Oh, I had a little bit of spike at work, come down, I was training, and then it should still end up low at the end of the day. Problem is with chronic stress, again, not those acute little bumps, but chronic stress where it just stays elevated the whole day, it can have a lot of really negative effects on our body. One, if you get to a point where your cortisol is elevated at night, it can make it really hard to sleep, which opens up a whole nother door for problems and things like that. But just the kind of chronic elevation of cortisol can lead to water retention. It can lead to cravings, so wanting to get like those sugary foods or that like spike of energy from food. It can lead to a suppression of your like satiety hormone, so the hormone that actually makes you feel full, which means you'll eat more. And it can also lead to less movement throughout the day, just kind of naturally less movement, because again, your body isn't in the natural rhythm of energy that it should be. So all of these things with chronic cortisol or chronic stress can lead to either resistance to fat loss or fat gain. So when we are entering a calorie deficit, for instance, where we're trying to lose fat, if we're already in a chronically stressed state and then the removal of food is again an additional stressor, your body may do some things kind of behind the scenes to make it more hard. You might move less, like your steps throughout the day might just naturally drop if you're not paying attention to it. You might retain more water. You might do really well, but find that you have these little bit of binges that happen throughout the week or the month that then end up bringing you back to a maintenance level. So we have to be very cognizant about how our stress is throughout this process, whether that's losing fat, gaining muscle, just overall health and longevity, because if it's chronically elevated, it's going to make this journey a lot harder for us. Now, if you're wondering, am I stuck in a state of chronic stress? There are some signs, and again, you're going to have to kind of listen to your own body and make your own interpretations here, but there are some things that you can look at that could indicate a elevated level of stress over a long period of time. One of which would be a elevated resting heart rate. So thinking about your heart rate right away in the morning when you first wake up, or even if you have a tracker, what's my heart rate at throughout the night? to see at the lowest point where my heart should be the most relaxed, does that seem elevated? Generally speaking, you can go online and just find a kind of healthy range for heart rate. I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, but I think, don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure that somewhere between like the 50 and 60 is a fairly good resting heart rate. And if you find yourself outside of that, it could be an indication of elevated stress. But there are other things that can affect that as well. So we want to look at some other kind of indicators as well and try to stack a few of these to lead you to believe that it would be a problem. So other things is a lack of progress, even with really good compliance. That could be gaining muscle, losing fat, whatever it is. If you feel like, man, I've really been sticking to my diet, I've been kicking butt on my workouts, and I'm just not seeing results, your body could be resistant to that change just because of the elevated stress for a long period of time. Another thing that's a really common indicator is disrupted sleep, specifically kind of that like 2 to 4 a.m. wake up where it doesn't really make sense why I'm waking up, but I'm waking up consistently every night. If you feel like you consistently are waking up through the night, that a lot of times is an indicator of too much stress going on and is something that you want to address. But these are just a couple things that can really indicate it. Again, I look for multiple of these metrics to try to decide if this is what's causing an issue. That being said, it's never going to hurt to try and reduce your stress. Now, stress reduction is going to look a little bit different for everybody, but overall, if we think about the things that make you healthy, those tend to lead to a reduction in stress. So if I can fix my sleep quality by making sure I go to bed and wake up at the same time, my bedroom is dark, it's cool, I can get a good night's sleep, those kind of things, staying hydrated through water and electrolytes, getting outside in the sun and nature, calming down that way, avoiding news. News at this point is just really not worth it. It just is always stressful. It's nothing you can do about it, so it's not really doing any good for you. But some other things you can try as well. Depending on what your training plan looks like, you may need to reduce your training volume. That can be how many sets you do in a given workout. That can be how many workouts you do in a given week. If you're doing a lot of cardiovascular exercise, reducing the amount that you're doing. A really easy way to test if this is the issue, if you're exercising too much for your current recovery level, is by taking what we call a deload week, which is essentially a week off, or at least like a 50% reduction in volume and intensity, meaning you go in, you can still go in every day, but you're doing half of the work you normally would and at half the intensity you normally would. It should feel incredibly easy. And if you notice throughout that week that some of your symptoms improve, especially like that sleep quality piece where you're not getting disrupted sleep, then you know you probably are doing a little bit too much in the gym, and even when you come back, you'll probably want to pull back the volume and intensity. Other things, if you've been in a calorie deficit for a long time or chronically dieting, spending some time at or above maintenance and refeeding the body, which is really scary. This is what I spend a lot of time working with clients on, is getting through like a reverse diet and even an extended period of maintenance at a new caloric maintenance, just to restore the body's basically confidence in its safety with food and things like that. So that's another way to reduce stress. And then there's active practices like breath work and yin yoga and stretching and things that just calm you, right? So I also like to ask people, what are things that you really enjoy doing that you feel energized by? That can be getting out and spending time with family and friends. That can be knitting. That can be skateboarding. Like whatever you feel like every time you do it, you come back and you feel energized and restored. That's probably a good activity to introduce more into your life. So there's a lot of different ways to tackle stress. But again, one is ensuring that you're taking care of the big health markers, which is your hydration, your nutrition, your sleep, and your training. And that could mean, in opposition of what you want, eating more, moving less, unfortunately, for a period of time to just restore your metabolism and the function of your body and let it recover. It can mean spending more time out with friends rather than in isolation. It can mean picking up a breath work practice. It can mean a lot of different things, but it's those things that really make you feel energized when you're done doing them. And if we can spend more time on those things and less time on things like watching the news or doing things that are overly stressful for us that drain our energy, a lot of times we can restore the balance of stress, which then means the body is going to respond to anything that we ask it to do. So this week, I want you to think about that, is what can I do to help reduce my stress? And even if you feel like I'm not a very stressed person, I would urge you to try, just because it's only going to benefit you to try to relax more, try to replenish more, try to recharge the battery. And if you have questions around that, especially with like your training or your nutrition, please feel free to reach out. You can comment below or message me, and I'd be happy to help. All right, guys, have a great week.